Hello and welcome to Go Wellness Radio. I'm your host, Reagan Archibald, and today I'm going to answer some questions about genetics. A lot of you have asked, how much do genes really apply when it comes to health? And I would say, well, it depends because your genetic code is your genetic code. I mean, I wish we could manipulate my genes so that I was about 6 inches taller, more handsome, and smarter. But there's not a whole lot I can do about those things. Maybe with brain capacity, absolutely, there's things we can do there. But as far as genes go and chronic disease, what we're finding is there's actually a whole lot more that we can do about it than we ever thought possible. And with the new advent of stem cell therapy, with learning more about nutritional imbalances, hormonal patterns, and especially the gut biome, we're starting to discover that maybe our genes are are able to express more positive traits if we give it the right environment. And so that's where the epigenetic studies come in. But let's first of all talk about the exposomal factors. The exposome is a term that was coined around 2005 or 2006. I started seeing it in some of the literature, but it basically looks at the toxins in our environment. We're exposed to over 82,000 chemicals. These chemicals come from drugs, from alcohol, from food we eat, radiation, electromagnetic frequencies. They come from the plastics in the bottles, the packaging. The exposomal factors are what's causing our genes to mutate and to manifest disease processes earlier and earlier in life. I mean, that's why I'm getting patients in their 30s who have cancer or who have diabetes. Or, I have a lot of male patients my age who I look at their testosterone and they have the hormones of a 70-year-old man. And it's just really disturbing to me. But part of what is causing this is the nutritional values aren't there. They have not taken care of their body. They aren't exercising. There's a concept that we get from stress. If you put just the right amount of stress on the body, that's called hormesis. And so hormesis is, and I've talked about it on the show before, but that's like if you're taking a cold shower or if you do a banya, the Russian spas, you're in this heated sauna where the temperatures can get up to like 220. Yeah, they give you these little caps to wear, but it kind of hurts. But that intense heat, and then you jump into extreme colds, but those extreme fluctuations can create hormesis, which studies have shown that that can actually cause you to live longer, to be more resistant to negative genetic mutations, and to have more resilience when it comes to endurance and disease prevention. You'll have a stronger immune system as well. But if you have too much stress on your body in a negative way, like the stress from relationships, the stress at work, the stress from toxins, those things are not good. That's not hormesis. That's going to actually put your body over the edge. Even overtraining. I know a lot of you, I'm telling you, please just slow down on the workout routines because it's too much. Allergens, that can cause our genes to mutate in a negative way. That's why I recommend get your food sensitivity test done every year at least. Look at your cortisol profile at least 2 times a year. You also want to make sure that you're looking at any different biome. Look at your stool. Look at the microbiome and make sure that there's no imbalances there, because those imbalances, if you have an overgrowth of yeast or a certain bacterial strain, that can create more allergens in your body. And then we also, with the exposomal factors, you have to look at infections. Now, for those of you who have been diagnosed with like Lyme's disease or some autoimmune disease, we want to make sure that your viral load is contained and that your red blood cells, your white blood cells, your neutrophils, eosinophils, all those parts of your immune system need to be stable and need to be balanced. And so the only way we can address chronic infections is, once again, by making sure that you've got the right bacterial content in your digestive system, and also by looking at the hormonal levels, specifically your cortisol, because if your adrenal glands are stressed, if they're overloaded, overwhelmed, overworked, they're going to not be able to produce the release of white blood cells as effectively as they could for these infections. The other exposomal factor that you have to look at are traumas, because traumas can cause a significant amount of damage, not only to your nervous system, but they can also affect your stress levels and dysregulate your immune system. So let's talk about the epigenetic portion of it. So the exposomal factors, those are all the contributing factors that can cause genetic mutations in a negative way. That they can actually cause more disease patterns. The study of epigenetics is really cool because what we're finding is that um, we can actually influence our genetic expression. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that's not going to, have any impact on my height or my good looks or bad looks or whatever, but it will have an impact on the ability that I have to withstand chronic disease. So, if you're suffering with the notion that you could end up with, let's say, diabetes because your mother has diabetes, the good news is that if you give your body the right environment, there's a great chance that that disease process will never manifest itself if you can control the things that you can control. Control your diet, control your stress. You want to make sure that you have the right mindset, you're thinking positive. Follow the mindset morning if you haven't done that yet. But the epigenetic study, what it shows is the environmental and internal conditions affect memory and cognition more than genetics. So this study has even shown that epigenetics can have an impact on our brains. So you can all become smarter, and I can, which is a real gift. But epigenetics is basically, if you look at the word, epi is above, and then above the genes. And so we know with the methylation process in our body, that shows us the ability for our bodies to properly detox. If you can properly detox, then what happens is that protects your DNA from mutations. Now, we all have a specific tell on the bottom of our DNA. It's called a telomere. And that telomere length will determine how long you're going to live. So, one of the protectant factors of that telomere length is your ability to methylate. And so, there's a specific test that we may want to run on you. It's called the MTHFR testing. And the MTHFR, it shows your body how well your body can utilize and methylate B12. And if you do not have this genetic mutation, that's great. But if you do, then you want to avoid things like folic acid or fortified foods. You also need to take extra supplementation for your detoxification pathways, because one of the biggest impacts, even if you're eating as clean as you can eat, organic everything, grown out of your own garden, it doesn't matter, because if you are not methylating properly, you'll still become very toxic. So something we want to consider. Here's some pictures that show the difference between epigenetics versus the exposome. You can see this lady, she beat herself up. Here's some other pictures where if you don't take care of yourself, if you're making poor choices in just a small period of time, and if for those of you who are listening and you're not watching on YouTube, it's showing people within about a 5 to 7 year time period where they look really like they've aged about 20 years based on their use of drugs. So the exposome, it's very real and very palatable. Epigenetics and the loss of functional reserve equals Jing depletion. So Jing is that pure essence in Chinese medicine that basically helps us. It sustains us. It helps us live a long, healthy life. The Jing from Chinese medical philosophy is the substance found in your kidneys, and that substance it creates your overall your willpower. It also generates your ability to have a purpose in life, have a destiny, have meaning. And so what happens is if you have, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you're living that lifestyle that's not conducive for health, then you'll have a loss of functional reserve, and that's where you'll get Jing depleted. So when you're looking at these things, some of the studies that have been done on epigenetics, like with diabetics, what we found is from a study that was published clear back in 2000, they said 100% of the increase in prevalence of type 2 diabetes and obesity in the U.S. during the latter half of the 20th century must be attributed to a changing environmental interacting with genes, since 0% of the human genome changed during this time period. So that's pretty interesting. This is from the study called the article called "Waging War on Modern Chronic Disease," and it's very interesting when you look at the change in the environment and also the change in some of the behaviors that we're exhibiting in the modern day that have really caused this waterfall of chronic disease. So one of the underlying things that we look at in functional medicine is if you have a loss of functional reserve, this is going to affect your response to the exposome. So here's another study, and it talks about aging, and I think we can all relate to this, but it says usual aging is associated with changes that increase susceptibility to various stresses. Some of these changes represent loss of reserve function and do not produce disability under ordinary circumstances. However, the elderly are vulnerable and stand at the threshold of functional disability, at risk of being projected over that threshold when stressed. And so I think all of you can relate to this, that if you have a loss of functional reserve because of your exposures, this is going to lower your threshold, and then you'll have less ability to combat the stressors of life, because none of us want to end up in a nursing home. And God forbid if you're actually listening to this and you're in a nursing home, um, I apologize, but it's not where we want to be. It's not where we want our life. I'd much prefer dying after living a happy, healthy, fulfilling, long life, and I'd rather die hiking or doing something I love or dying my sleep, versus having the last 5 or 10 years of my life where someone has to feed me and change my diapers. But one of the only ways we can protect ourselves from this outcome is by making sure that we are doing everything in our power to take care of ourselves. And that starts with the choices you make with what you put in your mouth, the thoughts you're thinking, the air you're breathing, the hormesis that I talked about earlier. What are you doing to take care of yourself? Maybe investing in a sauna would not be a bad thing, or go to the banya and get whipped by the Leafs. My Russian friends have shown me some good therapy there. Um, but look at what you can do in your life to transform your health. That is the big key. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this answered your questions on how genetic expression can either be can either lead to health or cause disease. But just remember those two concepts of epigenetics and the exposomal factor. So we will be coming in on the next few shows. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be outlining some of the major causes of disease. We're going to be talking about a lot about how your bacteria in your gut are making you fat, or hopefully for some of you not. But we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things. So once again, I love you all. I appreciate all your support, all the emails that we receive. Thank you so much. If you don't hear back from me as promptly as I would like to get back to you, just understand that we do receive several emails, but we do appreciate all your support. So until next time, here's to your health. Take care.